It's that time again. The annual conference of the American Society of Ag Consultants, otherwise known as ASAC, is going to be held in Fort Myers, Florida, this November 4th and 5th. Kurt Covington is one of 9 professionals who will address the conference. The other speakers who will cover a wide range of topics represent Florida Farm Bureau, Florida Citrus Commission, University of Tennessee Institute of Agriculture, National Ag Law Center, Risk Mitigators and Advisors, Tyler Associates, as well as the lead economist for dairy at CoBank, and myself, Chrissy Wozniak from North American Ag. The day and a half of presentations will be followed by ag tours on Tuesday afternoon at Echo Farms, one of my favorite places here in Fort Myers. Attendees will experience farming at its most creative, with unique demonstrations, plants, and techniques being used to help farmers and urban gardeners in developing countries. A second tour at Echo will showcase simple technologies that can improve food, water, and shelter for millions of people. A third tour of a hydroponic grower is also being planned. For more information and to register, visit www.agconsultants.org. That's www.agconsultants.org. See you there. Today's Ag Spotlight episode is sponsored by Energrow. Energrow's oilseed pressing system helps farmers crush their feed costs. The easy way to make fresh, homegrown, high-quality meal plus expeller pressed oil right on the farm. The fully automated Turnkey Crush Pro is easy to set up and run 24/7. To learn more, go to energrow.ca. And welcome to the North American Ag Spotlight. I'm Chrissy Wozniak, and my guest today is from Greenwich, New York. She graduated from Cornell University with a degree in animal science and a concentration in business management and marketing. She has a deep love for dairy, was a member of the Cornell University Dairy Judging Team, president of the Cornell University Dairy Club, and was recipient of the 1997 Richard M. Kossoff Business Planning and Entrepreneurship Award. She's president of Morning Ag Clips, which is the place to find breaking local and national agricultural news every day. I would like to welcome Kate Ziehm. Welcome, Kate, and thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Chrissy. Thank you for having me.
So can you tell me a bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, well, you did a good job of touching some of the big things. I'm Kate Ziehm, and originally from New Hampshire. My roots go fairly deep in dairy and large animal care. My family has a dairy farm, and my goal was always to become a large animal veterinarian, which is why I went out to Cornell and I got my degree in animal science and have always been connected to dairy, cows, and farming, and never thought that I would be in the communications end of things. But one thing always leads to another, as we just previously discussed. And I landed in communications and with the Morning Ag Clips, and it has evolved. And part of that, it has to do with, I then married a dairy farmer, and then we got divorced 10 years ago and had 3 little kids and a lot of support behind me, but I needed to get into the workforce. So I started with a communications company that handled many ag associations in the state of New York. And it was interesting because he also had this, what he called the Morning Ag Clips. Like, I can't even take credit for it. But there was a lot of issues going on at the state level for legislation. And he started sending out, it was when emails were new back in 2011, 2009, in that area. And he sent this email updating people about what was going on legislatively in agriculture every day, called these Morning Ag Clips. And after legislation season got over, people just really enjoyed it. And to make a long story short, it was, very little. And then I came to work for him, fell in love with the clips. He hated the clips. He sold the clips to me.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. So here I am today.
Wow. So who are you reaching with the Ag Clips? Like, who's the audience?
So our audience are farmers and ag industry leaders. Mm-hmm. And what's really unique, and you kind of, when you look back at your life, you can see little hints of maybe where you should be that you didn't really catch earlier on.
Yeah.
And when I first graduated from college, I was a dairy nutritionist with Cargill. And one of the things that always was, it was hard for me is I'd go on to all these dairy farms and people would want to talk about different issues that were going on in agriculture or a meeting that was being held. And there wasn't just a place to go to know what was going on every day. And I always thought in the back of my mind, gosh, I wish I had a paper that I could read every morning that was just about agriculture. Mm-hmm. Not just like local agriculture, but I just wanted to know a little bit about what was going on in national agriculture. So you fast forward 25 years, 20 years, and you see that that is what the Morning Ag Clips is. We always refer to ourselves as that quick 1-2 to get people going every morning in agriculture. We are religiously there in their inbox every business morning. And I always tell folks, you can take as little or as much time as you want in the clips, but all those headlines are going to give you that information that you need to be smart in your day so that you understand the issues and what's going on.
That's right. And, what we've learned over the past year is that there is a lot that depends on agriculture. I mean, we know that from being in the industry, but I think now even the general public realizes how important agriculture is and these bite-sized news sources. So we understand what's going on. I think that's amazing. And I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, good. I'm glad to hear that, because that truly is what it's about, is because as an industry, we need to support each other in being informed. Mm-hmm. There's a whole lot of people and other industries that surround us that we have to work in and around to do what we do. And if we don't know what's going on in our own industry, it's pretty hard to navigate in other industries that we need to support us.
Right. Yeah, that's it. And there's no charge for subscribers, right?
No charge. We do this completely free from the bottom of our hearts.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So, right. So the model that we have is that our subscribers, you go on to morningagclips.com and you subscribe for the state edition that you want, because it's not just about the national ag news. It's about that local piece as well. Mm-hmm. And you say what editions you want, and then they'll start showing up in your inbox every morning. We are supported by our advertisers. Mm-hmm. We also have a portal membership so that folks, associations who want to ensure that their press releases get into our clips are in a more timely fashion. There's portal memberships, but we're supported by our advertisers. And I always feel as if our advertisers want to support us because of what we do, the service that we do for the folks in agriculture.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah. And I could see on your website too, you've got a pretty big team at Morning Ag.
I do. Yes.
Yeah. Including a director of marketing and a director of positivity. So how did they land those roles?
I wish I had a picture of them right now.
Yeah.
We are animal people here at the Clips. And back, one of my team members, she started working with me early on, Brittany, who many people have seen as our head editor, but they got a dog, Oatman, and he is our director of marketing, and she would bring him into the office. And then I got a dog a few years later, and dogs are always welcome in our office. We love them to pieces, and we would have cats as well. Like, I'm a huge barn cat lover, barn kittens. I can't even focus. If there was a barn kitten sitting here, it would be like, yeah, okay, Chrissy, yeah. Sorry, got to pay attention to the kitten. But that's how they got their jobs, is they just got into our hearts. So we put them to work when they're in the office.
That's good. Yeah. Well, I have a soft spot for chickens.
I love chicken.
Yeah. Yeah. And the same thing. If I have a chick, like I just had chickens in the house for a week, and I can hardly focus. I just love them so much.
and I am like that actually with especially a baby animal.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's that mother inside of me. It's constantly wanting to take care of something, but if it's small,
Oh, yeah.
and the saddest part, Chrissy, is I am allergic to cats.
Oh, no. That's terrible.
It's pathetic. It is awful. So, I'll see kittens and I'll be like, oh, I love them so much. And then if I don't wash my hands and face immediately, I just blow up. But it was worth it. It was so worth it.
A small price to pay for joy, deep joy.
Little sneezes, watery eyes, wheeze. Yeah. It's all good.
That's so funny. So on the site, you also have a section called Just Me, Kate. And
I do.
They have lovely articles about life in agriculture. I really enjoyed the latest one about how our own manure doesn't stink. Can you tell me about this section and what inspires these things?
I can actually. So as I mentioned earlier, I never considered myself a communicator. Mm-hmm. All through school, it was all about science. And, I was always in advanced science with that. I'm going to be a veterinarian someday. So I need to be good at science. And that was where my focus was. But throughout most of my life, I want to say I started at age 8, I would journal. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't somebody who put an entry in a diary every day, but when things would come along that would be funny or that I just needed to work out within myself, I would write. And I was noticing that there are patterns in my life when maybe things were harder, I would write more. It was my way of getting things out. And in particular, when I was going through my divorce, it's such an emotional time, as many people know, and it's hard. I started writing. And I would write, it was when the kids were little, I would write about their funny things. I would write about just so much. And so I realized I needed an outlet. Taking articles and press releases in every day from everybody's associations is great. I want to share that. But I just felt as if I wanted to keep writing. And the only way to keep writing is to make yourself write. Right? You've got to keep doing it because life just gets in the way, especially like for me, I've got 3 kids and running around. So I write a column every week and it's called Just Me, Kate. And it actually started back in 2009, 2010 is when I started it. I was one of the early bloggers and it was really podunk. And again, I just did it for myself. But then as I got the morning ad clips and I started realizing the audience that I had and how much I wanted to reach people, nothing makes me happier than when a reader emails me and says, hey, I loved that article. Or like you saying, oh, I read the article about manure stinking and how mine doesn't stink.
Yeah.
So it's been my creative outlet. And I'm really excited because we've actually given Just Me, Kate its own website.
Oh, wow.
And we're going to be launching that in the next few weeks. It's just about ready to go. But it also is an area where I can just be creative in my thoughts. And I am very much a people person. I love good conversation. I love human nature and understanding why people do what they do and how the interactions that we have bounce off of each other. And they can either make our lives miserable or they can enrich our lives. And I just love that. So Just Me, Kate gives me a place where I can do that all the time.
That's amazing.
I wish I had more time, but I don't right now. So it's my weekly article and some photos here and there.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. And you also have Farmhouse Communication. What do you provide through that company?
Yeah. So Farmhouse Communications is relatively new when I look at the span. I've owned the morning ad clip since 2013 is when I officially bought it. Mm-hmm. I've been working in it since 2011. But we noticed that many of the associations that were sending press releases in to us or were not needed services in communications. Mm-hmm. So I would say to folks, do you write press releases? Send them to us. And they would say, yeah, I meant to write one, but I didn't get it done. And so I was saying more and more, well, why don't you let us write it? We've got writers on staff. We can take care of it for you. So it has evolved into its own communications arm where we manage ag communications for different associations, maple, corn, soy. We've got a variety. We've even gotten into woodlands. Anything that's grown on this earth, we can communicate about.
Wow.
So it's good. So we're managing social media and doing writing and press releases, website management. So it's kind of, this is the farmhouse side. And then we've got our morning ad clip side.
Wonderful.
Keeps me busy.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
And so kind of changing lanes here, looking back over the last year, what have you learned regarding agriculture through the pandemic?
It's interesting because I knew you were going to ask me this question. And I was talking to one of my coworkers just now before we got on, and it's about resilience and how resilient we are. And it's one of those traits in anybody who's within agriculture that is just always there and we've always had. But I think the pandemic just showcased that and made us realize that much more, that we're farm strong. We've got this. We grow food. We know how to deal with things when there's not enough water, not enough wood, not enough money. We're very frugal. We have the ability to help our neighbors because we have so much land and resources that we kind of take for granted every day in running our ag businesses. But for me, that really was highlighted along with the network that growing food is. And what I thought was so great about the pandemic is it showed everyone in the world how important infrastructure is in moving food and feeding people.
Yeah.
And we're still dealing with those issues. I mean, we're just coming out of the pandemic and the chain of how food moves is slower. And we've always known that. We've always talked about that to consumers. But wow, it's pretty eye-opening when you walk into your local grocery store and there's no fresh fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
And there's no items on the shelf that are usually there for the cereal and granola bars. And so as hard as the pandemic was and how much negative effect it had, I always try to look at the positive. And I think one of the positive things we can take out of it is just that was showcased to our consumers about the importance of keeping the food supply and chain of movement intact.
Absolutely. I remember last summer having a craving for brisket so bad and couldn't find it anywhere.
No.
And that was, one of the first times where I wanted food and I couldn't get it, a certain type of food in our whole lives. That's pretty weird, right? To think that we are that spoiled where it took till I was in my 40s to actually not be able to find something that I was looking for.
Right. And doesn't it give you so much more appreciation and compassion for those in this world that don't have the ability for the choices or even to have food on the shelf to buy every day like we do. And I always say, everything that we do in our days, it's a choice. And hopefully some of this has made it so that people start recognizing it's a choice to appreciate every day.
Yeah.
And it's a choice to go to the grocery store and just be, I'm so thankful that there are tomatoes right now because I'm so thankful that there's the local farmers market where I can buy local. And that's another thing I think has been brought to the attention of the consumers as a result of the pandemic is the importance of supporting the local agriculture, because when that food supply chain shuts down all around us, we have farms in our community that have freezers full of meat and can work to feed us and help to feed us. Farms that are making gallons and gallons and gallons of milk every day. And consumers I think, see that now. It's more relevant. And one of the women that I work with, her parents do farmers markets for meat, and 3 times the number of people are visiting the farmers market now. And
Wow, is that right? Huh.
That's a result of the pandemic.
Yeah, that's amazing. So much more awareness.
So much more.
Yeah.
So I have to say there, I look at it, the pandemic, as it was really rough. And as you shared your story about not being able to cross the border and see your family, and, there were lots of hardships. But when I try to shift from those hardships and go to the positive place, I see so much positive that we in agriculture can celebrate as a result.
For sure. Yeah. And so what do you think is the most important takeaway for the industry?
I think it's still about supporting each other, whether it be local, you're a local farm and you supply locally through your farmers markets, through your CSAs, or it is the larger farm that is supporting the greater infrastructure. Mm-hmm. It's all important. And we need to embrace those differences. We get caught up sometimes in, on this hand and those differences on how we choose to grow our food, how we choose to, what scale that growth is for our farms. And I think that we need to continue to support all of us. It takes all of us to make this world work. And it's time that we start appreciating those differences on how we do things instead of harboring negativity, for lack of a better way to say it. So I think that's one thing that we learned within agriculture.
Yeah, for sure. So that kind of leads right into like the biggest opportunities for agriculture just are hand in hand with that, right?
It really is. I mean, to continue to support infrastructure, to continue to support the local movement, because in the end, that's going to be so much better environmentally, to keep it all local so that we're not trucking food all over. But to recognize, here in upstate New York, we have a giant city that's just 3 hours south of us, and they can't possibly grow all their food within that small amount of space. So they need us to be able to get food to them, to get milk to them, to get meat to them. And we need to ensure that that is taken care of, because there's so many folks down there. And they touch us on the opposite. It's their computer savvy, it's their programming, it's their consumption that then turns around and supports our business. Yes. So we need to do that. The other thing that we need to continue our path is the workforce, and creating the desire for people to work in agriculture. I know so much is becoming more and more robotic, which is fine, but there's nothing like humanness to get jobs done. Yeah. And I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and it was about how rewarding physical labor is. Yes. Not only for the body, it's kind of hard on the body because you get more aches and pains, but it's so good for the mind. And I feel bad because most of our population, I feel as if, is not in a day-to-day job where they are using their bodies to physically tire themselves. Yeah. And I think that has a lot to do with mental health. And if we can get people moving more. And it's great to exercise. Like, I'm an exerciser every morning. I exercise, but it's not the same as working for like your job.
That's it. Yeah.
There's just so much pleasure in watching what you've done come to fruition because of your hard labor.
Yeah. And I always find what's interesting just working on, my own small farm is where your brain goes while you're working like that.
Yes.
And the things that you think of, because you're not so, your mind can be still and then receive like the great ideas, right? When you're working with your hands and you're doing something that's, putting all those great chemicals through your body. And
yes, it's great.
It really is.
And I think about the times, like for me, as when I write my piece every every week.
Mm-hmm.
Usually the idea comes when I'm not sitting at my desk.
Yes.
Rarely does it happen when I sit at the desk. If it does come when I'm sitting at the desk, it's because I've had a Zoom interaction or I've had a conversation with somebody else in the office that like the light bulb goes on and I'm like, aha, that's what I'm going to write about. But typically it's when I'm out in my garden. It's when I'm lugging salts into the water softener. It's that physical labor. And I think it's because, as you made a great point, your mind stills.
Yeah.
And then it's as if everything that's floating out there for creativity is able to be heard because your mind's quiet.
Right. And you're not just like pounding through getting things done.
Yeah.
I love
So
it.
in my next life, or maybe as I think about where my business is going, I've often thought, I just want to stack more wood. Or, I just want to muck out some stalls more. And I'm trying to figure out how can I get my work done, but yet still do that part.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's when I was young, I worked in greenhouses.
Okay.
So just the thought, sometimes when I'm stressed, I think about cleaning geraniums or pinching tomatoes or whatever, right? Just those things that are comforting. And in that environment where I just think, okay, someday I'm just going to own my own greenhouse because it's just such a great, same
therapy.
thing. Yeah, that's it. It is therapy.
Yeah, it is. It is. So going back to your question about what are some of our challenges, and I brought in the workforce, is I'm just not quite sure how we educate our youth about the power of physical work.
Right.
And how great that is. And that, they look at these computer systems, those jobs with these high figures on them, and that's what they're going to. And maybe their minds are good. They're smart enough to attain that. But at the end of the day, what is more important, that really large paycheck or feeling just completely exhausted physically, but yet mentally feeling so fulfilled?
Yeah.
Because you had a great harvest all day. You got all that sweet corn picked, or you milked a lot of cows or something like that. Is how do we teach them how great it is?
Yeah, that's such a good point. You're right. Somehow that has to get passed along to the, people coming up into the workforce for sure.
Yeah. And it's easy with, kids in agriculture get that, but there's less and less of those kids in agriculture.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So where can people find you? How can they sign up?
morningagclips.com.
Easy enough.
Yeah. And then it's all right there. And, there's always works in progress on websites and stuff. But, and then you can always email me and I'll be thrilled. Kate@morningagclips.com.
Awesome. That's very good. And then I have one last question.
Okay.
What gets you out of bed in the morning and what are you most passionate about in this life?
Oh gosh. Well, it's pretty easy. And it's my 3 boys.
Yeah.
It's my 3 boys. I love more than anything being a mother. And one of the things that I recognize, which is one of the reasons I own my own business, is I realized quite quickly after getting into the workforce, after getting divorced, is that I needed to own my own business so I could be the mother that I wanted to be.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, for me, if that piece of my life isn't under control, being the mom that I want to be, making sure my ducks have the care that I think is what they should have with that mother-child relationship and all that encompasses it, I'm not happy. I'm not happy. I can't focus on anything. And I really felt during that 1.5 years that I wasn't in control of my own business, that it was a constant struggle because I was being pulled. My conscientious nature is to be a really good employee, but yet the pull towards my kids just killed me having to make those calls and those changes. Whereas as your own boss, you can work it the way it needs to be worked. And so my passion in life is my 3 children. Mm-hmm. And what gets me out of bed really is taking care of their needs first, but then other people. I have great people in my world and in my life, and I love communicating with them and talking through their problems and my problems, and just sitting down and having a cup of coffee.
That's awesome. Oh yeah. The coffee is definitely up there.
It is nothing. There's nothing like I almost feel empty right now with this interview because I feel like I should have a cup of coffee and just kind of be drinking it and just soaking it in. Yeah.
Oh, I can totally relate to that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, Kate. That was a great conversation.
You're welcome, Chrissy. I had a great time, and I love to talk about things as it pertains to agriculture and communication.
Awesome. And thank you to everyone who's watching or listening. If you want more information, all the links are provided in the show notes. And don't forget to subscribe to North American Ag Spotlight on YouTube. And our podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Amazon, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And have a great day.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to today's Ag Spotlight episode, where we put the spotlight on people and companies doing great things for the agricultural industry. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Stitcher, or on your favorite podcasting platform, and give us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on YouTube and Rumble to see the video version of Ag Spotlight. Also, head on over to NorthAmericanAg.com to subscribe to our Industry Connect update newsletter. If you're interested in advertising opportunities, email us at connect@NorthAmericanAg.com. Thanks for listening.